Oh, damn it, it's early. Oh, come on. What the heck are you doing here? Don't you know it's Saturday? You're not gonna leave till I feed you, huh? Fine, whatever. Look, I don't know what got your butt out of bed so early on a Saturday, but for me, there's only one thing that can get me up and going this early on a weekend. No, not that. Well, sometimes that. Bagels. Fresh, hot bagels. Now, back home in New York, you couldn't swing a dead cat without running into a bagel bakery or two. But down here in the Southland, well, biscuits is the breakfast breadstuff of choice. Now, not to knock biscuits or anything, but...
Is that what the kids are calling it these days?
You want to eat or what? As I was saying, biscuits are awesome. I mean, they're great with jam and chicken and gravy, but for me, nothing beats the warm, chewy, crusty deliciousness of a fresh, hot bagel in the morning. Besides, no self-respecting Yankee is ever going to put gravy on a bagel. Here's the problem. In order for me to grab the goods, I have to put on makeup, get in the car, drive 30 minutes, wait in a line, get my dozen, get back in the car, drive another 30 minutes, yada, yada, yada. You get the picture. See, for me, most days, I just want to lounge in my PJs with my cup of coffee and my paper and enjoy a nice bagel, makeup free. The solution? Make them myself. Now, look, the bagel recipe is not that hard. Simple ingredients, really cheap. The bagel making technique, however, is a bit of an art, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how it's done. Here's what you need. Water, active dry yeast, sugar, salt, kosher if you please, cornmeal, but that's for later, 6 cups of flour. I like to use a combination of semolina and high gluten bread flour. That's it. All right, so in your stand mixer, you're going to want to fit it with your paddle attachment. We'll start out with a paddle and then we'll work our way to the bread hook. So we're going to take our yeast, sugar, and the hot water. Put that in. Give it a little mix. For about a minute until the yeast and sugar are dissolved. Then we're going to cover it. Let it hang out there, resting, for about 5 minutes or so until the yeast gets nice and foamy and bubbly. The moment we've all been waiting for. Drum roll! Ta-da! Now take a look. That's exactly what you want your yeast to look like. Foamy, like a good glass of beer. All right, to this, we're going to add our salt. Lock it in place. And start stirring slowly on your lowest speed on your mixer. I'm going to add my little sleeve. And we're going to start adding flour. I add about a cup at a time. When you see that your first cup of flour is incorporated, you add your next. Now I like using semolina. You can use a full dosage of bread flour if you want. You don't have to mix flours. I like the semolina because it adds kind of a heartiness and a really good flavor to my bagels. Now I say about 6 cups of flour. Actually, it's more between 5.5 and 6. Usually for me, the magic number is about 5.5, but that can vary depending on the weather. If it's really, really rainy outside and there's a lot of moisture in the air, you might use a little bit more flour. If it's a really dry day, you might use a little bit less flour. You'll know by the feel and the way the dough looks. All right. So I'm going to take off our little collar. Now I want you to take a look. At about this point, when it's kind of a goopy dough, that's when you want to switch over from your paddle attachment to your bread hook attachment. So we'll take that out. We'll get all this dough off of here. Now we're going to add the dough hook. This way we'll actually start kneading this dough while we're adding in the rest of the flour. Sleeve goes on. Get those little doughy bits back in there. Lock our mixer. Now when the dough is at this point, you want to add the flour a little more slowly. You don't want to add too much because then it takes more time and it's harder for the flour to incorporate into the rest of the dough. So a little at a time. When you see that the flour that you've just incorporated is fully mixed in with the dough, then you add a little bit more. And I always like to stop and just kind of feel the dough. Now right now, the dough as it is right now, way too sticky. You want your dough to be elastic. You want it to be smooth, but you don't want it to feel sticky. It should feel moist, but not sticky. You don't want it overly dry, because if it's overly dry, it's really, really hard to work. So usually what I'll do is I'll just kind of move it around a little bit, get whatever flour is in there, kind of stuck onto the dough, and give it a little mix. I'm going to take a large bowl, a little squeeze of oil in it, set it aside for the dough. All right, this dough is looking pretty darn good. We're at a good place now that we can take it out of our mixer. We're going to add a little bit of flour on our surface. Now we're going to hand knead it. All right. Again, the dough should feel moist, but not sticky, and it should have a nice elastic quality about it. And we're going to knead this for about 2 minutes by hand. After you've made a few batches of these guys, you're going to get a really good feel on how the dough is supposed to behave and how it's supposed to feel and look. This dough is looking perfect. Feels great. All right. Our dough feels great. It looks great. Now we're just going to let it rest so it can rise. I've got my bowl here, large bowl, because this is going to double at least. I've coated it with a little bit of oil. I put my dough in. Just turn it around a little bit so it gets nice and coated. We're going to cover it with a clean cloth. Now we're just going to leave it alone. Let it rest so it can rise in a warm, draft-free place for about an hour or so until it doubles in bulk. And our dough is ready to go. All right, so we will uncover it. Look at that. Big fat bagel dough, yay! All right, here's the fun part. We're gonna punch this down. Get your boxing gloves on and whoo, 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 yes! Very empowering. All right, after we've done that, we're gonna sprinkle just a little tiny bit of flour on our surface. We don't want it to be too floury. Now, we're gonna take this dough, turn it out on our surface, and we're going to kind of knead this, and as we knead it, we're going to knead it into a log. Make sure that you get as even of a log as you can all the way down. And we're looking for a log, about 3 feet long or so, something like that. This is going to give me 16 nice-sized bagels about yay big. Now, if you want a big, giant, fat bagel, you can make this a little bit smaller or cut your pieces a little bit larger, and you'll have a larger bagel and about 12 bagels. Now, what we're going to do is judge about halfway and make a cut. For each half, we're going to cut that in half again. Cut each quarter in half again. And then each piece gets halved again. All right, now's the fun part. Now we actually make the bagel shapes. Each one of these little guys, you're gonna kind of work in your hands like this. Now, the technique, very important here. What I'm doing is I'm kind of rolling it out, but I'm also tucking under. That's gonna give you a really nice smooth surface on your bagel. So you're gonna wanna do that so you get a nice smooth surface and kind of a coin. Then you're gonna wanna just break a little hole and stretch it out a little bit. Voila, a bagel. You're gonna set these aside. Continue doing this until all of your bagels are made. There you have it, 16 perfect little bagels. Now when you go to a bakery in New York, they're actually going to give you 13 instead of 12. They call it a baker's dozen. With me, I give you 16 instead of 12. I call that a badass dozen. Now we're going to cover these guys up, keep them nice and warm with some clean cloths. Now we're gonna let these guys rise for 15 minutes. Remember that number, it's really important, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. While they're rising, we're gonna prepare our pans. Preparing the pans is easy. All you need is a little bit of vegetable oil and a little bit of cornmeal. So we're gonna just drop just a little dollop, maybe a teaspoon, not too much, of vegetable oil on our pans. Pans are nicely oiled. Now I'm gonna take some cornmeal and sprinkle some cornmeal on the pans right over that oil. All in all, you'll probably use about 2 tablespoons of cornmeal on your pans. On the burner, I have an 8-quart pot filled with about 6 quarts of water and 3 tablespoons of sugar. It's at a rolling boil. We're gonna start cooking these bagels right now. All right, remember me telling you that 15 was the magic number? Here's the reason why. Because your bagels have partially risen right now, right? Okay, now they're actually gonna rise the rest of the way in the water. If you make them rise too much before they hit the water, when they hit the oven, they're gonna flatten out like pancakes, and that does not make a badass bagel. We're gonna take these guys and we're gonna drop them in. Here's another important number you need to remember. 1 minute only. That is the amount of time you wanna boil your bagels. So we're gonna let them boil for about 30 seconds, and then we're gonna flip them over, let them boil another 30 seconds, and then we're gonna take them out and put them on our sheets. I like using one of these little guys. You can usually find it wherever you find Asian type cooking. It's meant for cooking in a wok. It's great because it's got a nice big bowl and it tips the bagels, and then when you're going to scoop the bagels out, it's very gentle on them. You won't break your bagels or pop them or anything like that. All right, guys, you can see how puffy they get. We're gonna rescue them out of the water, let them drain, put them right on our baking sheet. What I like to do is flip them, because I put them in top side down, then I flip them, and I'll flip them again, so this way the top side is up when they hit the sheet. Look at how cute those are. All right, we got some little bagels, little mini bagels right over here, little tiny ones. Now when you're boiling your bagels, 1 minute is the maximum amount of time that you want the bagels to be in. If it's a little bit less than 1 minute, that's not a problem. You just don't want them in there any longer than 1 minute, or again, your bagels are gonna flatten out. You don't want flat bagels. Bagels are boiled and out. Now we're gonna add some toppings to give them a little zest. Now to make your bagels nice and shiny, we're gonna use an egg wash. Don't worry, it's not complicated. All it is egg whites and water beaten together. We're gonna brush them over the bagels. It'll make the bagel shiny, and it's also gonna make our toppings nice and sticky. We do want our toppings to stick to our bagels. So we're gonna take a little brush and just go ahead and generously brush your bagels with your egg wash. Now we have all sorts of yummy toppings to make our bagels really, really special. For me, I'm using some sesame seeds, some toasted garlic, some toasted onion, and some kosher salt. To toast garlic and onions, super easy. Just chop them up really, really fine. Put them in about a 200-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, making sure that you kind of stir them up a little bit. You want them to be light toasting because they're actually going to toast a little bit more once they get in the oven on the bagels. So now all you do is just sprinkle your toppings on. And you can use any kind of toppings you like. You can get some caraway seeds, those would be good. Some poppy seeds. Anything you like. The toasted garlic and onion smells so yummy. These guys are ready. Let's get the second batch dressed. Okay, now it's time to bake our bagels. I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees. On the very bottom rack, I'm going to put this pan that I've got halfway filled with water. What that's going to do is regulate the moisture in my oven and make sure that my bagels have a nice crusty crust. 425 degrees for about 30 minutes. Now, depending on your oven, you may have to check them halfway and actually switch your bagels. So this way, the ones that are on the bottom shelf will have nice top browning, and the ones that are on the top shelf that have a nice top brown will get a little crunchy on the bottom. Just depends on your oven. Just give it a check in about 15 minutes. See how easy that was? And just imagine the looks of sheer joy and awe that your family's gonna have when you present the golden tray of yumminess at the breakfast table. Tell you what, for some extra brownie points, spritz your face with a little bit of water, dust on a little flour, put on the best, "Oh, I've been up since the crack of dawn making you bagels, slaving over a hot stove" look. And I betcha they're gonna clean up the dishes. I'm not telling. Well, my work here is done. You can let yourself out. And you know what? Clean up your dishes next time, okay? For more tips, tricks, stories, and recipes from the front lines of modern domesticity, visit our website, www.thedomesticbadass.com. Until next time, have fun and be fearless. I'm just gonna catch a few Z's here. Just a second and close my eyes just for a minute. Right. It's not like I'm cooking in a bra. That won't come until season 2.